of you here, but we are live streaming, so I am going to use this mic, okay? I am Miss Murphy. For those of you who don't know me, I am one of the counselors. We have two other people here with us tonight. This is Miss McCleary, also one of the counselors, and Mr. Young, our college and career coach. So tonight we have a few goals. If you want to go to the next slide. First of all, we do have our ISAC rep here, and we will introduce her in a moment. And we will do a brief introduction just to the general idea of the FAFSA process, as well as just a general introduction to some scholarship information. We will go through some more detail of general information on the class of 2026 requirements around the college application process. So that is really what the bulk of the evening will be about, as well as a timeline for the process for the class of 2026. We did start talking with the students in the fall about building a college list, so we'll go through some of that with the parents so that you know what we talked about with them, and we'll talk to you about what comes next. And then we will have time for question and answers at the end. But before we get started, we do just have one general announcement. You may or may not be missing our department chair, Mr. Merle. He is not with us this evening. His wife had a baby on Monday, earlier than expected. So he is not with us. But we did just want to make sure if any of you have Mr. Merle as your counselor, we did email the students on Monday so that they were aware, but we wanted to make sure that you were also aware. So if you have a child that is a senior, Ms. Belowich will be covering for him. Those of you in the room, the juniors, I will be covering for him. If you have a child that is a sophomore, Miss McCleary will cover for him. And if you have a freshman, Miss Rucker will be covering for him, okay? So rest assured that we will help your child regardless of who their counselor is, but specifically if your child does have Mr. Merle, please, any of us can help, but this is the person that is assigned while he is out, and we do anticipate he will be out the rest of the year, okay? All right, so I am going to turn this over to Mr. Young for the next couple pieces of information, okay?
All right, thank you. Again, my name is Mr. Young. I'm the college and career coach here. I've been here for about 2.5 years, closer to 3. I used to be a college recruiter for 10 years, so at 4 or 5 schools. So in terms of just trying to help students understand the college going process, I've been a part of myself, and then also too helping students prior to this as well. I want to explain this in terms of what we do to for a graduation requirement. It's called Learn, Plan, Succeed, or LPS. So this is something that TPS started over 5 years ago to help students figure out a plan of action through certain pathways that they deem that were qualifier under a post-secondary success. All right, and I'll actually share those with you in the next slide. Now, with those, and there are 6 particular ones, those are the ones that CPS said, hey, you know what, if students, we see in a trend that students are actually going into these specific areas, for example, college, military, a job training program, we want to be sure that they have the necessary, the important information, but also to the right information about how to get to the pathway. Also, it's myself and also the counselors who they have been working with for the last 3 years to help them understand how to go about choosing the right pathway for them. So that's how we go about it. All right. So these are the 6 post-secondary options that that CPS has deemed or in terms of the trend that they've noticed that students have gone into. Now, it starts with college. Right now, we have most of our students at our school who have considered the college-going pathway. From there, it goes into employment, so obtaining or having a job already if you're already in school, or if you're going to go into it right after you graduate. A trade or apprentice job, so for example, being a plumber or working in construction. A job training program, so working with a program called like Job Corps. A gap year program, so it's like a program that you volunteer with, where it may be in the state, outside the state, within the country, outside the country, and you're helping through a program that's kind of assisting individuals who are maybe less fortunate than them. So it's just like a good, and then also to the military, so they consider one of the branches as well. So we help in terms of just trying to figure out what pathway that they want to pursue, and then we try to provide information for them as best we can. All right. So, also too, when it comes to financial aid, that'll be also another CPS requirement. But what we do is we have someone who helps and assists with that. Her name is Miss Marty, and she's a part of the Illinois Student Assistance Commission, which is called ISAC. And I'll let her speak about the FAFSA.
Hello. So like you just said, my name is Salma Mardi, and I work for the ISAC, which is the Illinois Student Assistance Commission. And basically our main goal is just with assisting students in the college process, specifically with the financial aid process. So we help with the FAFSA. If you need to do an alternative application, we also help with that. So far this year, I've been here every single Wednesday helping in Mr. Young's office, helping with the FAFSA, helping with the alternative application, as well as doing workshops every month or so in the evening or in Saturdays. And basically the main thing I want you to know for the FAFSA is that it will be opening October 1st next year, fingers crossed. But what you can do right now as parents of juniors is I would really recommend setting up FSA ID accounts, which you can do on studentaid.gov. And that's basically just like the username and password that you're going to be using when you file the FAFSA, but it's useful to have it prepared like well in time. But yeah, so I'll be here next year as well. Also Wednesdays, I'm assuming. But if not, Mr. Young will, let you know if the schedule changed. But I'm very excited to help you all next year as well.
So, also, we will, I will, or our department will be hosting a scholarship information session actually April 8th. So the week after we come back, that's actually the day that students will be taking the ACT test as a junior. We would be in the evening. We're having the CPS scholarship manager come. Well, it'll be virtual, and she will be speaking about how students can locate and find scholarships for if they're considering like the college going pathway, or even maybe some of the trades as well too. So that will be happening April 8th. We do have a backup session of April 10th, depending on how that day works out as well too. If we have more individuals asking about that for their first day, we may add another day, which may be April 10th, but mainly April 8th, 6 to 7 p.m. She'll be speaking for about 20 or 30 minutes in regards to how to locate scholarships through our internal system that we use and students have access to through School Links, and then some other various sites as well that they can check out. So please stay tuned for that. I'll be sending that link via email after spring break. All right, next slide. All right, and then next we're going to go into college planning. So,
all right, so I'm going to start by talking a little bit about what the students should have already started doing. First, I want to just share some important links. This presentation has already been posted. It's on the Lincoln Park website under the counseling corner. And I posted it under evening presentations. So if you go down to the evening presentations section, this presentation is posted as well as the link to the live stream. Tomorrow morning, I will take down the link to the live stream and post the video. I don't think you'll want to watch it again, but you may want to refer back to the slides because all of these links are there, okay? So the student link for School Links. School Links is the system that we use for college career research as well as for the college application process. Your students should already be familiar with it, but they will become much more familiar with it next year. So that is the student login for School Links. It is cps.edu/schoollinks. If your child ever says they're having trouble and that it doesn't work, remind them that School Links only has one L in the middle. Okay, so they crushed school links together with only one L. I also provided the link to the College Board website, specifically to the Big Future portion of the College Board website, which also has a lot of search engines on it. So some of the functionality that we use school links for is also available on College Board. I'm not saying one's better than the other. One of the things you're going to learn about searches is that if you search slightly differently or in more than one place, you're going to get different results, right? You ever done a Google search where you put the words in a slightly different order and you get two completely different answers, right? And this works the same way. If you put that you're looking for a college with A, B, and C in school links, and you put the same thing in Big Future, you'll get a lot of overlap, but you'll probably also get a couple that only show up in one place and some in the other, okay? So feel free to use both or either. Next slide is the parent access to school links. If you have not already set up your parent school links account, you're going to want to go to cps.edu/parents. We do have the detailed instructions spelled out here, but honestly, if you go to cps.edu/parents, it also tells you what to do, okay? So do not click where it asks for a claim code. Just go through where it says forgot password, and it'll allow you to set up your account that way. As long as you use the email address that you use in Aspen for your parent portal, it will connect automatically. If you don't have a parent portal account, or if you tried to set it up with an incorrect email, reach out to the counselor. We can try to fix it. The issue is you have to use the same email as your Aspen account for it to recognize you as the parent, okay? Okay, so what we did with the students in the fall is we went through the search engine in School Links and asked them to work on doing a search to start a college list. We did this deliberately rather than just asking them to make a list. Because if we just say to a student, where do you want to go to college? We get some very routine, pat, similar answers. Who won the basketball tournament last year? They're usually on the list. DePaul's usually on the list. The 10 big name schools that everybody knows about are usually on the list. The school mom or dad graduated from are usually on the list. There's not usually anything wrong with the schools they name, but a lot of times the students can't tell us why they named them or what they like about them or why they might be a good school for them. And so we deliberately try to get them to start their college search by telling us what they're interested in, not what school they want. So we try to do it from the other direction. So we ask them, what are you interested in studying? What are you interested in doing when you're done with college? Are you interested in big schools or small schools? Are you interested in doing research as an undergrad? Are you interested in schools that have sports teams intramural that you can play on, right? Are you interested in being in a city, or are you interested in being in the South? Are you interested in, so we ask all of those kinds of questions and have them build that into the search engine. Also their GPA, right? Also estimated test scores, things like that, okay? And that will help produce a college list. So we do ask that the students start there. When they start the other way, what we have found, this is Mr. Merle's story, but he's not here, so I'm going to tell it. He had a student several years ago, applied to 10 or 15 schools that we don't know where she came up with the list. She loved these schools. She applied to them. It came to be spring. She said, Mr. Merle, none of these schools have a program in mortuary science. And he said, did you just decide you wanted to study mortuary science? No, I've always wanted to study mortuary science. And you didn't check? No. She applied to 15 schools that didn't have her major. Never looked. She just liked the schools. We don't want you to do that, okay? We don't want you to apply to U of I because your friends are applying to U of I. Guess what? U of I doesn't have a program in mortuary science. They're a great school. But if you want to major in mortuary science, they are the wrong school for you. Okay? So you really have to think about what would make a school good for you. My least favorite question in the entire world is when a student says to me, but is it a good school? I can't answer that question. The right question is, well, is that a good school for me? And I can answer that question if you tell me what you want in a school, and then we can find out if that school has that, right? Okay. I really truly don't think there are good schools and bad schools. There are schools that might be right for you, and there might be a school that's horrible for you, but really right for him. Okay. So you have to do that research now as you're building your list so that you're not disappointed later. Okay. So that's really where we've started the process. So as they're doing these searches in school links, we asked them to kind of put the heart, there's like a little icon next to the schools that looked interesting to them as they went through this process. But this can't be where the process ends. Just because a search engine said this is a good school doesn't mean you're like, okay, I'll apply there. All right, you have to do more research than that. So that's where you have to dive deeper. There's a lot more information on school links you can dig around. You should also go to College Board and dig around. Most importantly, though, the college websites. If you can get there, the college visits, the college tours, talking to those schools at college fairs. This is where the meat of the process really starts to happen, okay? All right. And again, as you're going through this process, you're looking at a lot of different things. Academic fit. Do they have what I want to study? Are the students there like me, right? The GPA of their students. Am I in that ballpark? Okay. You don't necessarily have to have that exact GPA. But honestly, if you're a 4.5 and their average is 2.5, you might not be happy there. And if you're a 2.5 and their average is 4.5, you might not be happy there, right? So you do want to look at those things as you're looking at schools. Do the professors interact with undergrads? Different schools are different, okay? Some schools have a real focus on undergrads. Some have a more of a focus on the grad students, and then the grad students do the interacting with the undergrads. So if that's something that matters to you, you need to look into that. Look at that personal fit. As much as we focus on academics, and that is the main reason that you are going to college, most of you are going to go to a college where you're going to live there for 4 years. And you're only in class 15 hours a week. So you need to make sure that you are happy the rest of the time as well, or this isn't going to work, okay? So make sure that you will be comfortable there. Do the students seem like people I want to be around? Are there activities here that I would enjoy? And don't forget the financial piece, okay? The other thing that happens in the spring is students get into their schools, but then discover they can't afford them. Try to do some of that research up front. If you have not already explored net price calculators, this is absolutely a good time to do that. For anyone that is not familiar, the government has required all college websites to have what is called a net price calculator. You can Google the name of any school and net price calculator. I am not going to tell you they are all easy to find. Some schools have buried them. But if you Google the name of a school and net price calculator and fish around, you can find them. My personal opinion is the harder they make it to find, that school comes off my list. That's just my personal opinion. But most of them are fairly easy to find. That will ask you some general financial questions about your family. and will give you an estimate of the type of aid your student may receive at that school, which would help you estimate what that school might cost your family. Obviously, these are all estimates until you do your actual FAFSA, but we strongly encourage you to do the estimates and to have these conversations with your student so that they know what type of school, what ballpark price you can afford, okay? All right, and then finally, eventually, you're gonna wanna narrow that list down. When we met with the students in the fall, we were like, go ahead, heart 20 schools, heart 30 schools, that's fine. Because as you start doing more research, some of them are gonna come off, okay? They should be in the process now where some of them are starting to come off. As you look more into them, especially as you start comparing them, right? You'll be like, well, the program here is similar to the program here, but I like everything else about this school way better. Okay, so as you start to do that, some of the schools will start to come off. Just unclick the heart, take them off your list. This is where things get complicated, and you have to figure out how to organize this. Everybody is different. Most of your kids are very digital at this point. We did make a Google sheet, okay, that they can use if that helps them. If you click on that college research sheet, it says assignment. Guys, you don't have to turn it into anybody, okay? This is just for you. We made some generic columns. You can delete them if you don't like them. You can make your own. This is strictly for you once you make a copy of it, okay? So you just click on that. It'll force copy, and then you can do whatever you want with it, okay? In the old days, we used to make a binder or an index card, okay? But you do kind of want to keep track, okay, of what you like, what you don't like, why you like, because you are going to have to be comparing schools and making those decisions, okay? All right, so again, this is school links. This is just a quick example of the University of Illinois, some of the things you will see. I'm not going to talk a lot about this page. This is just the overview page. But if you notice at the very bottom left where it says admissions, if you click on that, it will bring you to a page that looks like this. And we did spend a lot of time with your students explaining these, and I just want to go through it briefly. This is called a scattergram. Along the bottom axis are SAT scores, and along the vertical axis are weighted GPAs. All those red and green dots you see are Lincoln Park students. The reason I like scattergrams is because they are Lincoln Park students. So your student can compare themselves to people who sat in their seat, okay? It really isn't helpful to compare their GPA to the GPA of a student who went to a rural high school downstate, okay? Those two schools are so different. They may even calculate GPA different, right? We weight honors classes with a full point. They might weight honors classes downstate with a half point. So you might think your GPA is better only to find out it isn't once the college recalculates based on the fact that we calculate differently, okay? So I like the scattergrams because you're comparing apples to apples, okay? And this gives you a way to look at your admissibility, okay? There is no way to predict with 100% accuracy whether you will be admitted or not. But this is a way to give you an idea of whether this is a school that you are likely to be admitted to or whether it is more of a reach for you, okay? And there are other ways in school links that we will talk to them about next time we meet with them, but I do just want to remind them and show the parents this, okay? Those dotted lines are averages. I also do need to point out to you that these are SAT scores. So for your students, they would be using their PSAT score from sophomore year. Your students are in a bit of a guinea pig situation. Is that the right guinea? Is that what we call them? Because you are the first group that's going to be taking the ACT, right? So we do have ACT data because students used to take the ACT, but it's a good 10 years old. Okay. So I do think it is more accurate at this point to use your PSAT and compare yourself to SAT data of students over the last 3 or 4 years than it will be to use your ACT score and compare yourself to students from 10 years ago. Okay. So I do think this is going to be your best bet for now. Okay. These are just additional resources that you can click on. I'm not going to spend time on this. Okay, college tours. I won't spend a lot of time on this either. One of the good things that came out of COVID, I don't like saying it like that, but I think you know what I mean. Colleges did a lot of beefing up their websites. So there are a lot of virtual tours posted on college websites, literally tour guides walking around filming the tour. So for schools that are further away, it is a good way to kind of get a feel of walking around the campus. So look for those if you can't visit, okay? But we do strongly encourage that you visit. Okay, so I already talked about a lot. There's a lot more to come. None of us expect your student to do this alone. Some kids do. Okay, some kids, we beg them to come talk to us and they don't. Some kids are in our office all the time. Every kid is different, okay? Their counselor is a resource. Mr. Young is a resource. But as a large school, we do depend on your child to make that appointment and come see us, okay? So for the individual college planning meetings, most of the counselors do put a survey in the Google Classroom that we ask your student to complete first. It's not a hard survey. It's not a long survey. Mine probably takes about 15, 20 minutes. It asks, what are you thinking about studying? Have you visited any schools yet? Just some little background information like that. I like to do research before the student comes. I like to feel prepared. So I ask that they fill that out at least 2 days before they're going to come meet with me. That gives me time, especially if they're looking to major in something less common. It gives me time to do my research on what I might need to know to help them, right? So we do ask that if your counselor has posted a survey that you do that first and then make that appointment at least 2 days in the future. If you can do it a week ahead, that helps everybody. You know how busy we are, okay? But at least 2 days, all right? And we do ask that the student come in person, come to your counselor's office for this meeting. Parents, we ask that it's up to your student whether you attend or not, okay? If your student would like you there, please come, and that can be in person or virtual, okay? And then here is the information on how to schedule that meeting. Most of you know this already, students. Your counselors all have those websites to book appointments. And if your counselor doesn't, you just have to email them, okay? And again, if Mr. Merle is your counselor, you would be making that appointment with me. And again, that does give me twice as many juniors. So if you could give me more than those 2 days, I would greatly appreciate it, okay? All right, testing. Mr. Young already did mention we are giving the ACT on April 8th. You are already registered. All juniors are registered and will take it on April 8th. That is a mandatory test. The state of Illinois requires that you sit for that test in order to graduate from high school in the state of Illinois. Any other testing is completely optional. A lot of colleges have gone test optional. This started before COVID, but it really gained steam during COVID. Sorry. Okay. You may remember the testing centers shut down. kids couldn't test. So colleges had no choice. If they wanted to consider applications, they had to consider applications without test scores. And a lot of colleges have continued to do so. So what we have found is that students have a lot more decisions to make around testing. Do I want to test again? Do I want to submit my test? Do I want to apply test optional and not submit a test? It's complicated, right? Okay. So feel free to come talk to us about it. There is a website up there called Fair Test that has done a pretty good job of summarizing the testing policies at all major universities. But your most up-to-date, accurate information is always going to be on the specific school's website. Okay. If you want to take the SAT, we will not host it here. You will have to register on College Board's website and take it on a national test date. The only ACT we will give here is April 8th. And if you want to retest, same thing. You have to go to the ACT website and register for a national test date. And here are the national test dates, okay? They are always on Saturdays. They do a good job of not doing them on the same day. So if you wanted to do an SAT and an ACT, you can. There's no benefit to doing both necessarily. You can do either. It's completely up to you. If you want to strategize that and talk it through, come see your counselor. We're happy to do that with you. But just know that you do need to register for any of this on your own. All of these exams do have a fee. But if you do qualify for a fee waiver, usually ask your counselor. We can check your status, and we do have some fee waivers available for the testing. All right, I get to breathe now. I'm going to turn this over to Ms. McCleary. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ms. McCleary. So now we need to talk about what should you be doing kind of coming up soon. So in the summer and for the early part of the fall. Basically, the first thing is that you want to refine that list that you started making at the beginning of this school year. So whereas Ms. Murphy talked about how you may have 20 schools, 30 schools on that list, that kind of dream list, now you want to start narrowing that down. Most students will apply to about 5 to 10 schools. That is a good number of schools. And we do talk to the students about making sure that it's a balanced list, that you have some safety schools, some match schools. And yes, everyone can dream. So you can have 1 or 2 schools that maybe are a little bit beyond your academic profile. But 5 to 10 is a good solid list to have. And then you absolutely want to make sure that you have an email address, a professional sounding email address that you use for your applications, and that you remember what that email is, because sometimes students come in and they can't remember if they use their CPS address or their personal email. Please try to set one and make sure that you are keeping up with the email that you use for your applications, and that you're checking that email regularly, because once you do submit your applications, colleges will be sending you'll be inundated with information, and you really have to make sure that you're staying on top of it, because a lot of the information that you'll be getting is time sensitive. So you want to make sure you're checking. All right, so what can you do in the summer? You can start some of those applications, but basically the demographic information. So name, address, and if you're going to do the Common App, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, there is quite a bit of information that it requires on the front end. But we definitely ask that you not submit anything over the summer. The Common App opens up on August 1st. So if you were super eager and you went in there in July and you thought you could go ahead and start, it's actually not the current Common application. So you need to wait until at least August 1st to start it and open up your account. You can also apply directly through a school's website, and that's just basically going to DePaul.edu or whatever that school is. Well, DePaul probably is only a Common App school. That was a bad example. But there are some schools that actually you can apply directly through their website. If you're interested in an HBCU, there is actually a site that's similar to the Common App for specifically historically Black colleges or universities, and that's called the Common Black College Application. And then the Coalition app, which functions somewhat similarly to the Common App, but not as popular, and we don't really like it. Not very user-friendly. So don't do that one. And so to help you with that, Mr. Young, our college and career coach, is going to be hosting workshops over the summer. Do you want to speak to that? There's a slide, or I can, okay.
All right. So essentially what's going to be happening is in the month of July, I'll be hosting these during the middle of the week. So it'll be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I'm going to add Wednesday as well, too. What I'll get a chance to do is help. I'll bring in college recruiters that some of them I personally know to be able to help explain the essay writing process that they go over with students for students interested in their schools. But mainly they get a chance to hear from the people who would maybe potentially looking at their applications for the schools. Then also too, just building that bond with the recruiters from those particular institutions. But bringing them in and talking about what they look for, what they spot, and essential tips and tricks as well. Help with the Common App. So what is it? And starting an account. So if you wait until August 1st, I would have, if they can, if you want to, students can come in and also start their Common App account. Now, with that as well, explaining the sections for Common App, because there are like 4 or 5 sections that you have to work through: financial aid, the actual Common App itself, where you're inputting information, how you find your colleges, how you add them, and then questions that you have to answer for it as well too. School links, exploration, and assessment completion. So there are some assessments on there to help students figure out what careers that they're thinking of pursuing, or that could be maybe related to what they're looking into. And also too, being able to learn how to download their own transcript, because students have access to a transcript on School Links. They can just download it to their computer. I often have students come in, and I always try to remind them, like, hey, you already have access to your grades. You can see your GPA weighted or unweighted, and even the classes you've taken, because some schools actually have a self-reporting process where you have to input the classes within the Common App or their actual personal website. All right. And also too, career and exploration through the schooling system. So also building upon, and also I believe in this now as well too, thinking about the career or careers that you're interested in, and then working your way down from the careers, finding the majors, and then from the majors, finding the schools that have those areas that are popular for those majors. Okay, so thinking of it that way. School Links actually, I feel like does a great job of explaining or looking at a specific career that you want to go into, and it gives you information on how much they make, characteristics that the person would maybe need to have, so on and so forth. So we try to do that during the summertime. I'll actually have a sign-up list for that towards the end, after I get a chance to graduate these current seniors that are here now. And then we'll go from there, and then actually have these sessions start in the month of July. So next slide.
Okay, so how and where do I apply? There are basically, like I said, 2 main ways that students submit their applications. The Common App is most common. There are over 1,000 colleges and universities that accept the Common App. It is kind of a one-stop shop, if you will. So you basically do one application, put in all your demographic information, and then you can select the schools that you want that application to go to. And that there are 7 essay prompts that you can pick from, and you do one essay, and then you can also send that essay to those schools. So it is very popular, and I would say a good majority of our students use the Common App and apply that way. And you'll see up here on the slide, some of our most popular schools, including UIC and University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana, accepts the Common App. And we also have DePaul and Loyola. Northwestern is a big one, Boston. So there, like I said, there are over 1,000 schools. However, there are still a number of schools that don't accept the Common App. And for those, you have to apply directly through the school website. So the biggest school system that we usually come in contact with is the University of California schools. So all the UC schools have their own application system. and you have to apply directly through them. City Colleges of Chicago, if you are going that route, you have to go to their website. And then Georgetown is kind of a little outlier as a private school, but I don't know why, but they don't take the Common App, and they have their own special application. So those are just some examples. Those are the two main ways. We encourage you to use the same email address and write down your passwords to save yourself time and to stay right. Because what you don't want to do is to forget. We've had some students actually open up another account. So now there's a conflict. They've submitted documents under one email address and then they can't remember. And then they open up another one and it does create a big mess. So that's like organizational one-on-one. Pick one email and write it down. Okay. So like we said, you can begin in the summer, but please do not submit. Because there are certain documents that have to go along with your application. And so if you're eager and you go ahead and submit before we give you kind of the go ahead, then basically your application is just sitting in the school's portal. And they're like, we don't know who John Brown is because we don't have any of the information on this student. So please, please don't submit. Wait, we are looking at probably early September is when it would be the earliest time that we would recommend you submit your applications because we have to send your schedule. We have to, for most schools, we have to send your transcript. So please just remember that we want to hold you. It's great if you have everything prepared, but do not hit submit until we kind of give the go ahead, which will be in early September. Not just that we have to send it. It's that you have to. We've had students that they write down what words. Signed up for. But then you find out that sometimes the answers are different. Right? So it's fine to practice. It's fine, ready to go. But listen. How do I keep track? Okay. All right. So not to belabor the point, but we know everybody is pretty technology driven. So get a spreadsheet. If you're a spreadsheet person, I'm a visual learner, so I need to see it. And if I am applying to 10 schools or more, hopefully not more, I want to have it all laid out so that I'm making sure that I'm doing everything that's necessary. Because again, schools have different requirements. Some schools are going to require short answer essays in addition to the one essay that you do for the Common App. So it just varies. Make sure that you figure out what works for you, but have a system of organization in order to keep up with those deadlines, okay? Because when a college says that their deadline is December 15th, they mean it. They will not consider you if you submit on the 16th. So meeting deadlines is extremely critical in the application process. Oh, please, for technical difficulties. Okay. Deadlines. Speaking of deadlines. So we get a lot of questions about the difference in deadlines, right? So at Lincoln Park, we have quite a number of students and we highly encourage students when possible to apply early. So early action. There's early action and early decision, and sometimes students get the two confused. Early action is basically you're doing it early. You are taking action to apply early. It is not binding. You can apply to more than one school early action. And for the vast majority of schools, that deadline is usually around November 1st. There are some schools that have a November 15th early action deadline, and there are even some that have like a December 1st. But most of them, November 1st is that early action deadline. You can apply to as many schools as possible who offers it early action. The other thing that's important to remember about early action deadlines is that for many schools, their scholarships are tied to early applications. So you may be thinking, no, I need a little bit more time. I'm not going to be ready until after the first of the year. But if there's money on the line and it is specifically tied to applying early, then you definitely want to take advantage of that. Okay. The other thing is that when you apply early, you will get an answer sooner. So a lot of times if you apply by that November 1st deadline, you may get a response back by end of December, early January. Whereas if you wait till regular decision, you may be waiting until April, depending on the school. Early decision is binding. That says that if you get accepted, you are going to go to that school. You are only allowed to apply to one school early decision. You can apply to several early action. So early decision is ideal for that school, that dream school that you know for a fact, if you get accepted, it doesn't matter how much it costs, where it is, any of that. If you get accepted, you're going and you're going to sign something that says that. And we as your counselors also have to sign something that says we talked to you about it and you know the deal and you're going to go. And usually that deadline is November 1st too. Regular decision gives you a little bit more time. And those deadlines are typically in January. So January 1st is a very common date. Now, the thing about January 1st regular deadlines is that we typically aren't back in school on January 1st, right? So that means you really kind of have to plan ahead. You're not emailing us over holiday break saying, my deadline is coming up, please send my transcript. So these are the things that you want to keep in mind. Regular decision is usually for many schools before we actually get back from holiday break. And it's also gives you an opportunity to apply to some schools if you've already done some early and you got an answer and maybe didn't work out. Rolling admission is probably the most flexible of all the deadlines because those are schools that accept applications kind of year round. So for example, right now we're in end of March. There are some schools that have rolling admission deadlines and you can still apply. And so those oftentimes may be your safety schools. We have an example like Roosevelt University, if we're talking something local, has a rolling deadline. And a lot of times some of the state schools have rolling deadlines. So like Northern, Southern, I call them the direction schools. All right, so when we're talking about what is most important, we get that question a lot too. What do colleges really pay most attention to? What's so important? Oh, did I skip? Okay. All right. So as you see, and I'm not going to say that these are necessarily in the order of most important, but they might be. But number one are your grades. So yes, colleges are going to look at all of your grades from freshman year until. And so freshman year does count, you guys, but it does help to see that you've made an upward trajectory in terms of those grades. So if freshman year was a little tough and things didn't go as planned, you still have time and hopefully a college can see that things have gone upward in terms of your success in classes and the type of classes that you've taken, right? The strength of the curriculum. So are you taking the most rigorous courses offered or are you kind of keeping it level and not really challenging yourself? Test scores, Ms. Murphy touched on that. Schools used to not, well, the last couple of years, they haven't been as important, but they're starting now to get back into those, to look for test scores, and they are starting to have more of an impact than they have in the past few years. The essay can often be a really strong piece of your application because let's say the grades aren't exactly where you need them to be. Let's say the test score isn't off the charts, but you have a story to tell and you're a great writer. That is your opportunity to really hit it home with an essay and making sure that you're able to express to the school why you want to go to their school. Some schools that don't consider test scores or don't consider certain things, they really put a lot of emphasis on the essay. They want you to know why you want to go to U of I versus Wisconsin. They're both, Big Ten schools. They both have 30,000, 40,000 students. They're both flagship universities. But what's different? Why one over the other? And you have to be able to tell give a compelling reason in that essay. And that's why it's a really important part of your application. My favorite, number 6, the counselor recommendation. So if you don't know your counselor or you've never talked to your counselor, we encourage you to make them know you, right? Because we are required for a lot of schools to do letters of recommendation. And so it's important that we at least have had a conversation with you. We write much better letters when we know the student. So it is oftentimes an important piece of your application. Now, there are some schools that don't want to hear from us at all, but there are still quite a few that do. And the same goes for teacher recommendations. So we want to make sure that when they ask for a teacher recommendation, they really mean someone who has instructed you in a particular subject. They want to know how you are in your science class and what your strengths are in that area, how you are in your English class. It differs from the counselor letter in that we are talking kind of high level or a broader picture about you as a student, whereas they're really speaking to your skill in a particular subject. And both are very valuable. So make sure that you are thinking now about maybe who the teachers are that you would ask for a letter from. You don't need 7 letters. Most colleges, if they want a letter, they're asking for 1 to 2 letters, no more than that. We don't do the subject test anymore, thankfully, and a portfolio. So if you're an art student or a music major, or an art student may have to present a portfolio if you're applying to an art school, or if you're doing a music program, you may have to do an audition. And then extracurricular activities, students ask all the time about extracurricular activities. So they don't necessarily want to see a laundry list of things that you've done. A lot of times you want to pull out the most important activities that you've been involved in. If you've had a leadership role in something, what impact you've had in a particular club or organization, not just that you have signed up for a particular club and you attended one meeting, right? So you don't necessarily have to have 15 different activities. You want to make sure that you're involved in something, but that whatever you're doing, it's been impactful in some way. Interview isn't as common, but there are some schools that still require it. I do know for a fact, like anybody in here interested in MIT, you will have to do an interview. So sometimes it's those schools that are the most highly selective that still have that as part of their process. And then work experience is just going to be something else to help round out your application. So if you have a job, that's oftentimes something you might talk about in your essay or, in your, as part of your application, because it shows that you can multitask, that you're responsible, and that you have other things that you are managing on top of being a stellar student. All right, we're not going to play this. You can do it, yeah.
If Mr. Merle was here, we would have started tonight with what is called the sorting game. He would have given some of you a GPA and lined you up in order by GPA. And then he would have read some statements and told you that if this statement applied to you, to either move forward or move back. And the idea of the game is to show you that it's not always the student with the highest GPA that gets admitted. And the point of this is really just to show you that, yes, your GPA matters, but your GPA is not the only thing that matters, okay? And yeah, some of these are a little funny and we do that on purpose, right? But I just want to go through a couple of these to kind of make some points. So have you taken challenging courses? Move up 2 spaces, okay? So think of that as a check in your favor when a college is reviewing your application. All right, if you've taken hard classes, that's gonna work in your favor. You play the oboe, okay? Again, nothing special about the oboe here, unless that school has an orchestra that's been short an oboe player for a few years. Ah, I like her a little bit more now, okay? You wanna major in agri accounting. Move on up. You wanna major in psych, move on down. Why? Well, agri-accounting majors are a lot harder to find than psych majors, right? So they have more problems filling that program. So again, if you have a niche interest, that can work in your favor, okay? So again, just some things to kind of keep in mind. When you submitted your application, you forgot to change the name of the college. You sent your essay on why you wanted to go to U of I to Wisconsin. Not good. You thought when they said the essay was optional, they meant it. Not good. You wrote the best essay of the year It got passed around the admissions office because it was so good. Move forward 3 spaces, okay? Those essays really do matter. College reps use those essays as examples when they meet with us. Like if you write that essay, they're admitting you. I mean, unless you have like a 1.2, right? Like honestly, if you have a GPA in the ballpark, you are admitted when you write that type of essay. Keep that in mind. You participated in an enriching summer program. Move forward. Again, is it a deal breaker? Maybe, maybe not, but it is something in your favor. You're a resident of North Dakota. Move up 3 spaces. Why? Most campuses are looking to diversify, right? Residents of Illinois are a lot easier to find than residents of North Dakota. Unless maybe you're applying to the University of North Dakota, then maybe someone from Illinois might stand out, right? So again, I'm not telling you to go to college in North Dakota. I'm just trying to make the point here that it's not always your GPA that tips the scale. And that you don't always know what tips the scale unless it's the last one, okay? That your name is Steinmiller and that the library's named Steinmiller and that that's not a coincidence, okay? Now, obviously, most of us are not in that situation, okay? But aside from that, the point here is obviously your GPA matters, but so do these little things, right? And you might not know what it is that tipped the scale for you or for someone else. And I just like to point these out because a lot of times, especially when students don't get in, they take it personal. And they might not have got in because they admitted the kid from North Dakota, right? And it's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. But that campus had never had a kid from North Dakota. So just keep in mind, it's your job to sell yourself. It's your job to talk about your strengths. It is not your job or your role to judge yourself. Fair? Okay.
Okay. All right. So I touched on this a little bit too. If you have special applications, so not just the traditional majoring in psychology, but you are into the art and you're planning to go to an art school, then you are definitely going to have that portfolio. So you want to start working on that now. You want to start talking to your art teachers. You should know kind of what those expectations are or what the type of programs that you're looking for. And if you don't really know what a portfolio is or what that might look like, then there is a website link here that might help you with that. And your teacher should also help you. If you are an athlete and you have dreams of playing at the collegiate level, hopefully you have been having conversations with your coach for whatever team you're on. You know who the athletic director is here at Lincoln Park, and that you have, most importantly, done the application for eligibility with the NCAA. And so if you don't know what any of that means, then you definitely need to talk to your coach and talk to the athletic director because that is something that has to be done if, again, you have dreams of playing in college. And then back to my musical theater people, again, same thing, auditions or anything along those lines, your teacher is going to be the best point of contact for those special applications. Oh, that's pretty. That's that website. So we are wrapping things up. We're getting to the end. Miss Murphy is going to do a quick summary for you.
And I am going to make it quick. Okay, so this is just a summary pretty much of what we've already talked about. I just bolded the couple things that we didn't spend a lot of time on already. At this point in the spring, I want you to be thinking about who might write those letters for you. And it is okay to talk to them about it in person or via email. Your teacher might ask you about adding them in school links. please remind them that you can't do that until you are a senior in School Links, okay? So your teacher can write their letter and they can save it on their computer for you, but they can't upload it in School Links until you're a senior, okay? So it is good to talk to them now, give them the time to get started, but they can't upload it for you yet. Summer, we will give you a survey in Google Classroom for the counselor letter. Like Ms. McCleary said, we don't know all of you equally. And even those of you that we do know better than others, we don't know everything about. I don't know what you do when you leave here. Some of you are involved in community organizations or involved in your church or things that we may not know. We do ask you to fill out a survey over the summer so that when we write your counselor letter, we can refer to some of those things if they're applicable, okay? And then in the fall, we will have more workshops. We highly encourage that the students attend as many as they can. We will also have a parent night for financial aid. We will have another opportunity for students to meet with us to finalize that list before they get started submitting those applications. And we will talk to them about how to do the School Links process. It's very simple. The teachers will need to be added or matched to your School Links account so those letters can be sent, okay? It's very simple, but we'll talk about that in the fall. I said this already, the fall workshops, okay? All right, questions, and you can go to the next slide. There is also a program evaluation. If you want to use that QR code, you can. If you'd rather do it when you get home, where it says, please complete this form is a hyperlink, okay? Question. Okay, so the question was about how early decision you can only apply to one school. To clarify that, you can apply to other schools' early action. So if she wants to apply to one school early decision, she can apply to 5 or 6 others early action. She just can't apply to more than one under the early decision label. So because the early decision label is binding, if she gets into the early decision school, one of the things that she signs on the agreement is that she contacts any other school she's applied to and withdraws the application. Yep. Any other questions? Yes. Okay, so it's under the what's called the counselor corner. So I believe you can find that under both the student and the parent tab. If you click on counselor corner and then it's under evening presentations. Any other questions? All right, well, if you think of anything later, yep. Yeah, so there's a like a toggle on there. You can switch it to ACT. Yep. Yes. Good question. So the CSS profile is still a thing. For those of you who are not familiar with that, the CSS profile is a supplemental financial aid application that is required by some schools, traditionally the more selective schools. CSS profile is run by College Board. So if you are applying to a school that requires CSS profile, it must be submitted in addition to the FAFSA. CSS profile, I don't even know what CSS stands for, but it is a supplemental financial aid application that is required by some schools. So it depends on what application plan. Early decision schools traditionally request Q1 grades. So they will get like a November update. Most other schools only request semester 1 grades. don't know that any of them are better or worse than any other. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of rankings because I think they choose what to rank on, and that may not be what's important for your child, right? So rankings are not my priority. My priority is what would make a school good for my kid, right? So what is she looking for? How is that at this school? Right. So that to me is more important than a raw ranking. But if you're looking at rankings, I mean, US News and World Report is as good as any other, you know. Yeah. Okay. If you have, yep. Yep. So no quarter grades ever appear on a transcript. Okay. And Q3 senior year grades are never seen. But senior year grades are reported. So after we send out what's called a mid-year report, so the January senior year grades go to every school they apply to. Okay. They usually get their acceptances. They make a decision as to where they're going. They should read their acceptance letters carefully because every single acceptance letter usually has a statement that says conditional on finishing the year in the pattern, blah, 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 blah. There is such a thing as rescinded offers, okay? Colleges do get final transcripts, okay? But at that point, that transcript only goes to the one school that the student has decided on. And we have had disappointed students. Yes, it happens. I've got a
reach out. Offer. I don't know what the outcome of it was because it happened over the summer, but the student reached out. I think he was trying to go into engineering or something. And the last semester of his senior year, he got quite a few D's. And so they did come and try to pull that back.
And I have one U of I one that they tried to pull back but didn't, and I can speak to that. It was also a math science student who got a C in AP Calc. They sent a rescind letter, but you do get an appeal. And her private tutor and her teacher both wrote a letter. And they did not rescind because honestly, they are not disappointed in students who worked really hard and faced a hard course. They're disappointed in students that gave up, you know, and so they did not rescind her. But it was a scary couple months for her. So, yes. Those will only be via Zoom. So the question was about the summer workshop sign out, and Mr. Young will send that out. Usually he sends that out once we get the seniors out the door. So end of May, early June. All right, I am going to let you, one more, and then I'm going to let you go. Go ahead. So both are reported. So, and it's hard for us to say what they look at, but both are reported because they both give schools different information. A lot of schools also recalculate, and I sort of alluded to that earlier. And some schools will even tell you how they recalculate. So like I said earlier, we give an extra point on GPA for honors classes. Some schools, other places give a half point, right? And so they can't compare my GPA to their GPA. They recalculate them completely so that the GPAs are on the same system. There are also school districts that grade on a 100-point system. So you get a 92. And how do you compare a 92 to a 4.1, right? So it's really impossible to say exactly what a school does with the numbers once they get them. All right. If you have individual questions, feel free to come on up. And if you think of things later, feel free to email us. But thank you for coming out on this lovely wet evening. And thank you.